Let's go take a look at our story on His Majesty the King and his advice on water. As Thailand is grappling with the worst flood crisis in half a century, Dennis Gray of the Associated Press has written an insightful report on His Majesty the King's role in water resources development. In his article called "In Thailand, a Royal Battle with Water," Gray wrote that the flood, which is now surrounding Sirirat Hospital where he is staying, is something King Bhumibol Adulyadej has tried harder than perhaps anyone to prevent. The king has sounded alarm bells, not always heeded, against overdevelopment, and come up with ideas that have mitigated the damage from the immense annual surges and retreats of monsoon-spawned water. The country's current woes, nearly 400 dead and 110,000 displaced, illustrate both the price paid for ignoring his warnings, as well as the limits of man's ability to control nature's sometimes overwhelming force. Even now, as the Thai capital and its environs fight the onrush, the world's longest reigning monarch is offering advice on how best to channel the unprecedented buildup of water from northern highlands into the sea. Heir to a legacy of Thai kings who saw the controlling of water as a royal task, one of King Bhumibol's first development projects was a reservoir in 1963 to trap fresh water and prevent salt intrusion in the seaside resort of Hua Hin. Today, these royally initiated projects number more than 4,300, with 40% related to water resources. The king's ideas, proposals, and implicit or explicit stamps of approval can be detected throughout the Thai water resource management policy and practice of the last 40 years at least, says David Blake, a water expert at England's University of East Anglia, who has studied the issue in Thailand. Falder adds that the king was focused on trying to solve the problem, as opposed to some of the political bickering and recriminations we see going on now. The king called his most notable move the monkey chic strategy, recalling from childhood pet monkeys which would munch on bananas, then retain the food in their cheeks to swallow later. The water that rushes down yearly from the north is diverted into sheiks on the approaches to Bangkok, then flushed into the sea or used for irrigation. "We must use the wrath of nature as our teacher," the king said in 1990. "If we can find a way to keep flood water in reserve and to use it when it's needed, it will be a double boon." However, Blake says the plan implied that communities around Bangkok would be sacrificed to save the heart of the capital, something that is now occurring, and overzealous bureaucrats at times diverted waters into farmland rather than the reservoirs. Since then, potential reservoir sites to the west, east, and north of the city have been filled in for industrial parks, housing, golf courses, and the international airport. The major cause of the flood is the fact that we built our houses on wetlands. My point is that humans have changed nature so much from what it used to be, King Bhumibol said. Over the next 2.5 decades, traveling to every corner of the country, King Bhumibol set out to both harness and manage water, from draining swamps in the south to designing upland irrigation from indigenous hill tribes in the north.